So you whiffed on Summer Melusine, you didn't get the Muscle Mommy, but you did get the Sith Lord, well, Summer Sith. And you're looking at all of her skills and you're saying, I can tell that this character is good, but I have no idea what they do. And fear not, I am here to explain this biblical servant to you in this video, because they are pretty dang good. They're really strong if you want to use them as a solo servant or you want to bring them into challenge quest with supports. They are just pretty sick, nasty, goated with the sauce. I mean, technically they also do have the battery to be a buster looper if you want to use her as that. She has an AoE buster NP, but I would say that's not using her to her full abilities. You're not making full use of her talent. So strap in, get comfortable, I guess grab your favorite Sith iconography, grab a lightsaber or something. Or if you have the Cernunos plushie, you could also grab that as your summoning catalyst. I guess like Dracula also works, right? Because she's a vampire lady, so you could grab that as well. Make sure you also leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as I do put these videos out every single day to make sure that you have something FGO related to watch every day, and make sure that you are informed on the goings-on both the NA and JP side of things. But with all that being said, let's start diving into this kit, starting off with Vader's Hits, of which she's rocking a pretty good deck that I like to see on my Buster characters. Double Buster, double Arts. This means we're not only going to be able to maximize damage and Buster Brave Chains, but we also have 2 Arts cards floating around for extra NP refund if we happen to get any crits on those. And with a respectable 0.59% NP gain, those 3-hit Arts cards might actually gen a bit of NP, especially if you're critting. Although that's probably not going to be the biggest issue for our Sith Lord over here because, well, we'll start getting into her skills in a little bit. Something to also note that as a pretender, she does have some pretty decent star gen and has an okay quick card at 4 hits on it. So I'm not saying you're going to be genning stars like Jack or anything, but you know, if you gen a couple of extra stars here and there, don't be surprised. She's got some pretty nice natural star generation. And then even though we're in a remission for the extra attack, I guess the 5-hit extra attack is still the standard. And if you don't know, let me put you on game. The extra attack is a composite card that gen stars NP and does big boy damage. And 5 hits is the golden standard that we like to see here over at ZTL Industries, but again, I think it's becoming too oversaturated. We've got to keep our eyes peeled for those 6 and 7 hits. Another thing that's kind of notable about Sith is that she does have the anti-berserker append 3, so if you're looking at some append skills to go after and maybe you just don't have a good foreigner in your Chaldea and you just need somebody to deal with these pesky berserkers, well, not only is she going to be really good at dumpstering on those bosses, just because her kit is already really strong anyway, but now she'll be able to dumpster on berserkers even harder. The most bullied class gets bullied even harder. And now, while I normally like to just look at the passive skills because they usually have a nice thing or two in there, Palpatine over here has very important passive skills, in that they pretty much turn on their entire kit. You have things like magic resistance, which is really good, 25% chance to just whiff any debuff coming your way. That's pretty strong. Riding EX and territory creation are giving some pretty decent buffs to your quick and arts cards, but it's the Fairy Knight and Priestess of the Enshrined Deity that really make it here. So let's break these down slowly, starting off with Fairy Knight. Depending on your ascension that you use for your Sith, you're either going to get a 4% crit buff against man attribute enemies or a 20% crit buff against man attribute enemies. That just depends if you're in Ascension 1 or 2, or if you're in Ascension 3. This also carries over into Priestess of the Enshrined Deity, where if you're in Ascension 1 or 2, your chaotic and good aligned allies are going to get 5% NP gain, or if you're in Ascension 3, they'll only get 4%. Now, I would just say always rock Ascension 3 because you're only losing 1% NP gain, but you're getting 20% crit damage. I think that's a pretty worthwhile trade. But that's not even the most important part. The thing you really got to pay attention to is that no matter what Ascension you use for Sith, she gives the party an on-defense buff, so whenever you are taking an attack, you get 1 stack of Wrath of the Enshrined Deity for 1 turn. That gives you 10% passive crit damage, but it also will come up on one of her skills, so just make sure you're keeping a mental note of that. It's just whenever you're attacked, you can turn that on. But now that we have those very important passive skills out of the way and we know what those do, we can start moving into Maul's actual skills, starting off with skill 1, I'm not even gonna say this. These aren't even real words anymore. There's a literal star in between them. But this has some very powerful effects. It's giving the entire party 20% attack and 20% defense for 3 turns, and it's doing something pretty unique. Keep a mental note of these next 2 effects, but it's going to extend the party's buff duration of HP regeneration, NP regeneration, and star regeneration for 3 turns, and it extends the debuff duration of poison, curse, and burn on your enemy. Now, spoiler alert, she will be able to make use of this herself, but just keep a mental note that say you're pairing her with somebody like Merlin, his NP does all of these things. Same thing for Lady Avalon if you really want to get freaky with it, but it is just something to keep in the back of your mind because this is very, very strong. But at least off rip, you can just see, okay, she's giving everybody 20% attack and defense for 3 turns. That's pretty good. It makes her a little bit more tanky, my supports aren't going to be as squishy, and we're all doing a little bit more damage. But let's check out Revan's second skill, Scion of the Rain Clan. And this one is pretty dang good. You're going to hear me saying that a lot. It removes one enemy's buffs, just all of them. Screw it, they're all gone. Dust them off that guy. It reduces their debuff resistance by 30% for 3 turns, their critical attack chance by 30% for 3 turns, and their NP gauge by 1 for 2 turns, while also giving her a 30% battery on a 6-turn cooldown. This is why she can do buster looping. You'll need a way for her to, get to 100% on her first turn though, either getting her a pen 2 with a 50% starting charge CE, plus this skill can do it. You'll still need Oberon because the 30% battery on wave 3 plus the 70% from Oberon, but you can get the job done. And she does have a power mod that makes her decent for that, so again, not the worst character to use. Pretender means she covers all of your knight classes, but more importantly, going into boss fights, more important than just the mere farming aspect of this character, is that all of these effects are insanely strong. For one, complete buff removal is just insane. Being able to yoink all of their offensive and defensive buffs means that if you have a character that you're also bringing, or maybe you're using Sith, and you have no way to get around your enemy's invincibility buffs or defense that they're stacking, or they're just stacking an obscene amount of crit damage, and you don't want to take a 1.2 million crit to the dome, you can just yoink all of that off, and it helps her and the entire team out. The debuff resistance will be notable for her own NP, although I don't think it's the craziest thing. Technically, we could do some fun stuff with it. And then the critical attack chance, again, it's one of those things that gets tacked on to some of these skills, and people are like, oh, okay, that doesn't really do anything, but you start to notice it if you're going to be using her in boss fights and stuff, that you're getting crit less and less, and that can just be really nice, because sometimes you can just get bad RNG and a crit ruins your entire run. So just having the ability to mitigate that factor, always going to be solid. And then the NP gauge restriction, it just helps out your supports, right? If you're rocking her with a Merlin and a Castoria for whatever reason, right? You're just doing that team setup. Or maybe you're just doing double Merlin and your illusion skills are down. You have no invincibilities. At the very least, you know that for the next 2 turns, you're not going to get blasted with an NP, which is always really nice. So just a really strong skill overall. Finally, let's look at Nihilus's third skill, Priestuninos Hammer, or however you say that. I don't know, it's a made-up word. I don't care. I'm not taking flack in the comments for this one. But this is going to be giving the party a 20% NP damage buff for 3 turns, bombs 15 stars, and here is where that Wrath of the Enshrined Deity status comes in. If you have that thing up, because you've been hit in the previous turn, you're going to get a little bit of extra NP damage, 20% extra, and a little 20% battery. And this is all on a nice low 6-turn cooldown. So again, much like, say, your Summer Melusine, where if you're on the certain battlefields, you get an extra buff, but you don't need to be on those to make this character good. These are nice little bonuses, because if you look at the core of what Sith is doing over here, she's got a really nice core going. First skill, you're getting attack and defense for everybody. Third skill, you're getting a little bit of NP damage, a little bit of stars here and there, while also having some pretty good debuffs for the enemy on her second skill. But then, if anybody got tagged when you pop this, or maybe everybody got tagged, maybe you popped a Merlin Illusion, so you took no damage from an AoE NP or an AoE attack, then everybody's going to get the extra NP damage, everybody's going to get the extra battery, and that's just always really nice. This is why I say I really like using her in boss fights, because you get to fully make use of her entire kit. Sure, you can use her as a buster looper, but 1, you probably have better options, and 2, you don't get to fully utilize the power of this machine. And because I alluded to it earlier, let's just go ahead and rip the band-aid off of that first skill and look at her NP, so you can remember that she is extending the turn rate of HP regeneration, NP regeneration, and star regeneration by 3 turns, and extending the debuff rate of burn, curse, and poison on the enemies for 3 turns. Well, she has all of those on her own NP. She gives herself 1000 HP every single turn, 10% NP gauge, 10 stars, and hits the enemy with a 2k curse and a 2k poison. But that's not all she's doing. She's also reducing the enemy's attack by 50% for 1 turn. Keep in mind, this is an AoE, and their debuff resistance has been lowered. This is effectively going to cut all the damage you're taking in half. We have somebody like the new Summer BB that lowers the enemy's attack by 100% and you literally take no damage, so that's just kind of how that works. Just to briefly overview how attack down works. So not only do you have the defense, but you also have the attack lowering on the enemy, so now nobody's really taking any damage. And again, if you are rocking, your Koyan Skies because you're trying to burst down the boss, you can pretty much infinitely keep them suppressed. Like, they just have no attack. So you're not going to be taking any real damage, and they can't NP you because of the second skill. And then, oh yeah, I forgot, little cherry on top. Here's 20% Buster performance whenever you fire your NP. Unfortunately, doesn't stack. That would make her better in the Buster looping department, but again, this character is clearly more tailored to being able to be good in different boss fights, advanced quests, CQs, stuff along those lines, in which I think she does a really good job and excels at doing that. And frankly, she's just a lot of fun. Sure, it can be a little weary sometimes to try to remember all the things that she's doing, but once you use her a couple of times, you get comfortable with the servant, you'll find out that Darth Bane over here ain't actually all that scary. It's very straightforward once you get into the groove of using this character, so I'm hoping that if you have been paying attention to this video and have been listening to all the things that I've been saying, you will give this character a try, because I do know the FGO player base. If a character looks too complicated, they will just stick them in the back of their Chaldea and just will never use them. But I'm telling you, give the character a spin, take them for a whirl, maybe try her out on some of the advanced quests, some of the older ones, get a feel for the character, and then start bringing her to harder and harder fights, and you'll have a pretty good fun time. It's a fun servant to be using, and again, especially because you do also increase HP regen, NP regen, and star regen. You pair this with Merlin, get a little bit of funky action going. Things can get really ridiculous and broken very, very quickly. I guess I will also shout out her Bond CE, because her Bond CE is pretty strong, giving 10% Buster to the entire party. And then if they have Wrath of the Enshrined Deity, they get another 10% Buster. So basically anytime they get hit by an attack, they just get 10% Buster for free. And that does make her NP 40% Buster, which is pretty nice. So if you're a huge Sith Lord fan over here and you want to make her your grand, however that's going to work out, then by all means, do so with confidence that her Bond CE is pretty good. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Is this a character you're going to be trying out, or are they just too complicated? I'm sticking to my basic servants that just get in there and hit hard. But hey, look, listen, Kukulkan is technically a little complicated, and you'll use her, so, why not give Sith a little bit of a spin? Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Down in the description down below, we have a Discord where if you play stuff like FGO, Dokkan, any of the Hoyo games, or the Hoyo-like games, if you want to include stuff like Wuthering Waves in there, Nikkei, Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, scratch Yu-Gi-Oh! Nobody plays Yu-Gi-Oh! But any of those other games, we got all that going in the Discord down in the description down below. And if you want to be more involved in the channel, we do have a Patreon down in the description down below as well, where you get to vote with other Patreon members in a super secret Discord chat about the videos that come out every Friday, or mostly every Friday, because sometimes FGO gets real busy and I'm like, well, we don't have time to mess around, lads. But at least for those videos that usually come out on the Friday slot, that is always going to be the Patreon members voting on that. There's also a couple of Patreon exclusive videos that I guess if you wanted to watch those, you could do so. Stuff like Twitch is linked down there as well. I think the Twitter and stuff is there as well. I don't know. Does anybody use Twitter? X, whatever we're calling it now? I don't know. More shenanigans in the description down below. But with all that being said, I'm going to stop yapping. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace, light, guys.